this is gonna be pretty awesome today, guys. So I'm gonna leave it pretty casual. This isn't like a lecture or anything. Basically, I'm just gonna kind of talk about the process that I go through to create animation, and hopefully that'll help if you guys have any interest in doing that yourselves. This is it's a really good starting point.
What the?
Sorry.
It is.
It's okay. This is not really loud.
You're usually supposed to turn it down when it's not being used. Mouse.
All right, so what I'm gonna do is I have all of these sketches, and I have some model sheets in here, and some storyboards from some of the episodes that we've worked on. I also have some outlines in here to show you guys. And any time throughout the panel when I'm talking, you guys feel free to just come up and check this stuff out. I'm just gonna put it on some chairs out here, so you can just, here, actually, you know what? Yeah.
Strong like bull.
Table.
Ow.
Oh no.
I mean, ow.
Okay, cool. So this is this here is a storyboard that I did for a Stephen King short. So I was working on that. And the pages are all kind of out of order. They weren't numbered because they were scanned into another document, and they were kind of put in order later on, and the script was added and things like that. You'll notice that a lot of some of the Robot Girl storyboards are a little more detailed, and then others are a little more simplified. And that's because at this point, we'd already created all of the characters, so it was really just more like a quick reference. We just really needed like, okay, 3/4 or front face or whatever, and it was more about the framing. So that's why some of these are a little less detailed, because we were really just more concerned with working fast. So that's why that works that way. But yeah, so you can check those out, and some other ones. How many of you guys have ever wanted to create your own animated series or had ideas for it? Okay, great. So every animated series is going to start with the pitch. So, you know, when you have an idea for a series, like the first thing you're really going to want to do is write it out in paragraph form. So say, you know, this is the world I've created, you know, they have a television series, you know, or, you know, whatever it is, and you map it out, make it about 2 paragraphs long. It's okay if you start with a whole page and then you just edit it down, you know, and try to get it to just a brief summary. And almost think about it like you don't want to give the whole story away. You're just doing broad strokes, you know? So sometimes it's hard to kind of remove yourself from that because you want to give all the details because it's exciting. But the best thing you can do is just simplify it, make it easy to understand. So, like for instance, we have some episodes that we've written, and you know, we have like here we can maybe show some of the episodes here. So I think this is. Can you guys see my mouse?
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like it's given me 2 screens here, which might not be what we want. I think I want to project. Whoa. What? No! Hit the wrong one. What's happening? Oh wait, did I do the right one? Split screen, right? You guys can see my mouse? Okay. Okay, so we have like this short here. This was John Swayze. See if we can get these to play. Hopefully it's not going to pull it up in quick time, but we'll just see what happens. But so the premise for this short, you know, it's a minute and a half short, but Dreg issues an invitation to the people of Earth to take up arms for the robot resistance. That's the synopsis for the short. So why are you so slow? Okay, but yeah, so we'll let that load up. But basically, so like this here is what you would call an animation show Bible. So this was for an animated cartoon called Mucha Lucha. Yeah, you guys want anything? Lobster? Yeah.
That's me too.
We need your help to destroy the girl creature who is decimating our forces. We have a bit of cakes and cookies with sprinkles we want to bring to Earth. We keep sending our lieutenants with invitations, but she keeps blowing them up. Our resources are depleted. Help us destroy her so that we can pillage your... so we can have a fun party with kitties and clowns and bubbles. Join the robot resistance!
Yeah. So, but the synopsis was that, you know, I could have talked about the kitties and clowns and like all the jokes that we had in it, but I just left that out. It was just, he tries to recruit Earth, you know, people of Earth for the robot resistance. That's the synopsis. So, you know, you don't have to include every detail. It's just the highlights, you know, just broad strokes. So like, you know, you have, so since this is like a school for wrestling, they sort of gave this its own feel, so they made it almost kind of like a little like yearbook, right? So they had all the little characters like sign their own names and gave it their own little personality. But these, you know, combining irreverent humor and visually dynamic fantasy action. Mucha Lucha, the first ever all-flash animated series for broadcast television, is a widely inventive comedy adventure about honor, family, tradition, and donuts. You know, so they're leaving it very broad. They're just kind of giving the idea, and then they break down all the characters. And you notice there's not that many drawings. You know, it's maybe like an action pose. It's a head and his dog. You know, so and because they probably talk about the dog in here, and then I guess of course he loves donuts. So donuts is the thing, right? You know, and this is a very, in my opinion, like it's a very corporate show. Like this is one that you would show to a corporation, a boardroom, and they'd go, ah, yes, we can sell this, right? So yours may not have this kind of feel to it. You know, your characters may be, obviously, if you're doing more of a Japanese style. You know, the writing is going to be different. The way the characters interact with each other might be a little different. So, you know, but basically the layout would be the same. So, you know, you have, you know, some other, so these are tertiary characters or secondary characters that aren't, you know, they're kind of supporting, right? They're your supporting cast. So you notice they didn't even draw the whole bodies. They just did a head and then maybe did a little like scene of something that might happen in the show. But notice they didn't even do a background. They just kind of did this yellow spotlight thing, right? Because they're in a wrestling ring. So you break it down, and then here's a whole nother like list of fun characters. They don't even give them descriptions. They're just extra characters that could be used in the show. So the idea is this is sort of the pitch Bible. This is, you know, here at the end, these are one sentence synopses of, you know, just like what we did there. It's one sentence of, here's what this episode is about. So, you know, you've got Ricochet must seek and find his inner lucha self with help from Buena Girl and the Flea. That's it. You know, so that's the episode. Ricochet becomes a man. You know, that's an episode. Ricochet must overcome his inability to dance. You know, so it's really it's kind of hard at first, But when you learn to kind of step back from your really complex story that you're building and just look at it as broad strokes, it can make it easier. And then you kind of start realizing like, well, if he needs to become a man in this one, maybe something happens in another episode that makes him realize maybe he needs to search for that, or maybe we can build it up in another ep, you know. So it gives you all these little secondary things then that you can add to other episodes that maybe could be recurring jokes or, you know, anything. So, but this is basically what you're talking about building, and as an animator, this is where you want to start. Because this is the tool that you would use to recruit your animation teams, you know, other artists, maybe other writers, you know, and it's also a great tool. I mean, so I sat down, you know, for a year and just worked on all of the outlines for the episode. So what I did is I sat down and just made bullet points, said this is what's going to happen in this episode, this is what's going to happen in that episode. And it's not on this, this one has a short one. I think this is a 2-sentence sort of synopsis, but most of them have a little, like, basically 1 or 2 sentence explanation of what that episode is. And what I always do is I try to leave it open-ended for the writers. So I say, hey, you know, here's the episode, here's the outline. The bullet points aren't necessarily in order. So if they want to move around things that happen, or maybe they want to exchange, you know, different ideas, take out a bullet point, you know, we can have those discussions and they have something to go on. You're not just saying, write an episode, here's my dream, you know, like you have to kind of give them something to build on. So it's always smart to start with an outline, because I meet so many artists who make that mistake of like, oh God, I want to write a show, but I always just get writer's block and I don't know what to do. And it's because they didn't do this. This is where the work is done. And by the time you get to writing the script, that's the fun part. Because what you do is you just come back to this whenever you get stuck and remind yourself where you need to end up. And a lot of times it's a good idea to go ahead and kind of map out the whole season. Because if you map out the whole season, then taking an episode from point A to point B is a lot easier if you know that you're going from point A to point Z over the course of a whole series. Does that make sense? Yes. So it's a little less daunting. You don't have to cram the whole show into one episode. You know, you can let the characters breathe a little bit.
And it'll help with continuity.
Yes, yes, and which is a big thing, right? Like you have to sort of keep that in mind. But that's why this is great, because you can do that all up front, and you don't have to stress about it. So I'm going to throw Mucha Lucha down here if you want to come check that out. Here's some fun outlines for Robot Girl. I can throw these down here too. So. These are some more storyboards. This is from a Fiesta commercial. It's pretty cool. It's like a fruit person. But yeah, I mean, everyone uses storyboards. It's kind of it's basically how you do animation. Because the way it works is you're basically going to start with the soundtrack. So when you make your script, the first thing that we do is I get on the microphone and I just act out the whole script myself. And what we do is we figure out all of our beats and everywhere the audio needs to go by just closing our eyes and listening. So have any of you guys ever seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah. Yes.
So do you remember that one thing where they're in Maroon Cartoon's office when Eddie's like there and they're listening to this thing and he's like, no, first he gets to his feet, then hit him with the thing, and they're like, yes sir, like the guy leaves the room. So that's what they were doing. They were listening to the soundtrack and he's visualizing the movement. And so that's how you plan these out. So you basically treat it like almost like a radio play or a podcast or something. And you listen to the characters. And then once your timing is right for your audio, like, we might need a little bit more of a pause here. This audio can move a little faster, you know, things like that. Those are all notes that you're going to want to make. Then once you have all that planned out, then you can take your storyboards and you basically cut your storyboards onto your soundtrack. So your soundtrack is solid, and then you start putting your scenes in. And you know, typically 3 to 5 seconds, you know, per cut is what you're going to do. Some shows like My Hero, maybe you're going to do 1 second or 2 seconds, you know, if it's really, really fast paced. So that's kind of how it works. So let's see. So this was thank you. So this is a good example. So we made a longer short and then we turned it into like a transmission. So this is.
Commanders invite you for a one-time event. Don't be left at home rusting on your ion. Let's bathe in the conductors of the ball. As the Furious, the terrifying destroyer of destroyers. Faces off with the puny frost sun guardian of planet. 2-inch powers face off. Witness this victory for the resistance. The fight of the centuries upon us.
It looks like some kind of machine.
Resistance. What do you guys think that means?
I don't know, but it's something big. What do you make of it, Soji?
Whatever it is, it's a repeating loop every 47 minutes. Someone's trying to get this message out. We need to trace the signal.
So, but what we did is yeah, and so like, and Micah, like, so for this clip though, like Micah did that take from home, and when I heard it, I was like, his voice is too deep. So we actually have a newer version now where he's doing it younger, and that's not that, that's the original. But but once you have it in there, once your timing is solid, then it's really just about slowly improving things. So like, for instance, with this show, now that we've got a few shorts done, what I can do is I can go back and revisit these episodes in the animation editing software that we use. It's called After Effects. And I can like add hair movement and like those little small details that you see in anime. So us doing it through Patreon has allowed us to take our time with it. So what I can do is work smart, and instead of trying to make every single episode perfect from the beginning, I can start and just release a storyboard episode, and then slowly start filling in the animation, and then instead of like tweaking this one to death and making it perfect and adding all the extra highlights and everything, I can move on to the next episode, and the next episode, and the next episode, and start slowly creating our tone for the show, you know? So this is one of the longer episodes here. Let's see. I think this is Strawberry Milk. I think this one might be. Pretty close. So none of this is
All right, team.
none of this is mixed yet, and we're still waiting on sound effects and sound design. So there's going to be this sort of, since they're in this sort of room where they're doing all this conspiracy work and they're trying to intercept transmissions and things, there's all these like little machines sort of buzzing and whirring in the background that are going to be there. So we have this sort of soundscape pad that sits underneath.
What we know so far. All of the activity seems to be centered around the coastal provinces and tectonic hotspots, volcanoes especially. We've had some fairly successful recon this week. 5 sightings this month alone. But we need proof. Actual, real footage. Ken, have you heard anything back from your contact in Shibuya?
He'll let us know if any gnarly tech hits the block.
Excellent.
I can't concentrate with all that slurping.
Wait, West Side.
He's drinking strawberry milk?
Something wrong?
No, nothing. It's just that I didn't realize you liked strawberry milk is all.
Doesn't everyone?
Gee, I guess even big tough Yakuza can even like strawberry milk. I suppose I misjudged him based solely on size, unkept appearance, and lack of manners. I hope he doesn't think I was being rude. I don't want to be on his
What are you
back.
staring at, Akira?
No, nothing at all. Thank you.
Dude, seriously? Where did you get that strawberry milk?
I agree, Ken. Tell us, Tatsu. We've all been working incredibly hard lately. A relaxing strawberry milk would do us all some good.
What? Oh, the gardening club was giving them out earlier for free. Over by the gym.
And so there's a line missing there. It goes, I see. Then we have no time to lose.
Let's go.
Meeting adjourned. This
Woohoo!
is going to be excellent. Hang on, guys. Right behind you.
They better not run out.
What the heck is happening right now?
Yes, invisible girl.
So yeah, so And this is, yeah, and this is a great example. So like right here when we have,
Seriously? Where did you get that strawberry milk?
I agree, Ken.
so do you see how he's just looking forward right now? So one of the things that we'll do is, where'd you get that strawberry milk? Is that he'll start out like maybe like, I agree, Ken. Tell us, Tatsu. So maybe we'll add a little movement there, or we'll do something, with him eventually for that pose, or maybe we'll, add this, and then he'll go, I agree, Ken. Tell us, Tatsu. Maybe do something like that. So there's all these little movements you can add once you have the timing solidified. You can just sort of, animation can just be an endless cycle of like tweaking, So you kind of, at some point, you just have to like let it be. But the great thing about doing it this way is there's no real deadline, so we can just fix it, And like I see stuff in My Hero all the time where they do like crazy angles, and I'm like, I'm gonna use something like that in the show, and so we kind of find a way to work in really cool shots, and since we have the characters created, we can just kind of tweak them and do different camera angles and all kinds of stuff with it. Because you see in My Hero all the time, you've got a guy charging, and the only thing moving is his fist, and it's just sort of shaking up and down. It's like the same drawing that's just going like this. But there's all the lightning and everything around it, so it's like distracting your eyes. You're like, whoa, it's crazy, but it's really just going like that. So, but having fun with it like that. So, this one was another fun test that we did. That was the Fight for Freedom trailer that you guys just saw, the calling all robots and all that kind of stuff. This was the first episode that we made where we were kind of testing what we could get away with as far as movement goes.
And to think you could have spared yourself the suffering you are about to endure. My sensors classify you as less than vermin. You're just a puny blip on the Titan scale. Get on with it! As you command, General Trade. I don't take pleasure in destroying such inferior species. But in your case, I'll make an exception. My unique vocalizations. Prepare to die, little one. Is it nap time, little babies? End this quickly. Yes, General.
He's got a little laugh. So you guys hear it's not really mixed yet, so we have all the sound effects turned up as high as the audio so that we can hear all the little things inside of it, and then eventually we'll mix it all together where things will be pulled back and pulled forward for different pieces. Yeah, that was mean.
No, it's fine.
But so here's a great example of this is an episode. This is how the episodes start. So what I actually do, like I said, is I go through and do a soundtrack, and this is one. This is an episode.
So, is he dead?
Well, from what I can gather, he's a real mess.
So this is like
Some of this seems alien, and yet, it's all the same engineering you would come to expect from any human mechanical schematics.
He's so cool. Dad, order 33 is ready.
This is incredible. Carrie, you up there? You gotta take a look at the...
What about these thingies?
Karu, don't touch those. They could be dangerous. Until we know where he came from, these are staying in a safe place.
Dad,
Safety first, kiddo. You know that.
So that's like a line that we added, and we're kind of still figuring out the timing. So it's like maybe we'll make it a little longer here, maybe we'll make it a little shorter here. So right, we have room to sort of feel out how the episode needs to work, and then we can kind of move drawings around before we animate it, so that we know exactly how long each scene needs to be. And yeah, and so I can show you guys the inner workings of one of the episodes. So let's see. Oh, and this one's really fun too. So this one is a great example of a work in progress. You'll see a lot of backgrounds here because the backgrounds even go through phases too. So, we'll start maybe with, something like this, and like, honestly, like I just haven't made this background because I want it to look really cool, and it's gonna take so long. I just don't want to do it. So it's like I'd rather just work on another episode. But there's this big science space station that's like orbiting the planet, and it's been attacked. And the way we tie this show together is Arctic is the ones that actually intercept this transmission from space and see this. And the little robot that they were working on in the basement, her and her dad, he actually ends up being part of the family. And because he's an interdimensional robot, he just whoop into a human. But he ends up in Arctic. He ends up in the club at some point in the show because he sees their conspiracy board, and there's like really garbled shots of her fighting robots. But they don't know that it's her fighting robots. They just see a form, but he sees it and he's like, oh wow, these guys are like doing research. And since his connection to the robots has been severed since he's gotten to Earth, he's using that team to spy on what the robots are doing. So he ends up giving this transmission to her dad, and he sends her up there to rescue his scientist friends. So it's all sort of tied together in this weird way. But yeah, so this is the episode where she goes up to the ship.
I'm inside. It isn't creepy at all in here.
So see, this is still a sketch in the background.
There's not much power left in the reactors. Be careful.
You keep saying that. I am being careful.
Storing gravity in your sector.
So see, that was originally, we had him off screen for that line, but now he's on screen, so she'll be kind of, so it'll be that sort of back and forth.
We need to find my old colleague.
Because the whole idea with this is, she's fighting robots all the time. Like, her fighting robots is nothing, but her going up to outer space to rescue some scientists is kind of, it's a little new. And it turns out that the robots that are up there aren't actually the robots the interdimensional robots that she fights. It's some sort of like corporate warfare espionage. So the science section and the military section aren't exchanging secrets as much as the military section wants them to. So they invade the science station in order to get more weapons put on the station so they can start bugging. So it's this whole thing that's happening outside of the show that we're not even aware of. But basically, she ends up getting attacked at the end by these Mars rovers, and she gets wounded on the ship, and she's bleeding out for the rest of the episode as she's trying to save these scientists. So the whole thing is she's like uber confident through the whole thing, like, Dad, I got this, it's fine, I'm being careful, and then she ends up almost getting killed. So it's this whole crazy episode that you expect it to go one way, and then it. And then Bento's eating his soup when he's not paying
all that destruction could still be there, so...
I get it, Dad. Seriously, you're worse than Gadget. What the...
See, and so that background's not finished yet, so we'll leave.
The company has the same security algorithm from back when I designed their system. Lazy.
Hey, I should have...
Dad? Stuck in space with no reception and...
Coward, we're back now! It's not safe!
We never said come. Run, child! You must leave.
Hey, help is here, sir. Tell me, what happened? Dad, if you're there, I could really use some help.
Kaoru! Can you read?
Dad!
Kaoru!
Dad?
Get out of there now! It's not safe! Do you read me? Kaoru!
So that'll be all like she won't be able to make it out.
Anyone there? Come on out. We have a present for
And so we've added a whole ending to that section. Thanks, guys. Where there's a big blade that comes up in the screen as she turns around. So you notice it was a little long on that last shot because we have a blade that comes up, and then it's going to slice the screen in half to like end the cut. And then the next shot we see is like splattered blood. And then she's like holding her hand like this, and the lights are blinking on and off, and she can still hear her dad garbled in the thing, and so it's all these like do 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 of all like her eyes, and then she goes into this sort of like weird flashback, flash forward thing where she's getting all these visions all at once of all this stuff, and she sees like this kind of dark matter creature that's been terrorizing her because he's attracted to the energy in her bracelets. And so there's all this stuff going on, and she starts kind of going into shock. You know, so.
Like a panic attack.
Yeah. But she's on a space station. So,
Poor girl.
yeah. So it's going to be pretty cool. And so so those are the kinds of things we're tweaking as we go. But it's just kind of, you know, it's this thing that animation always sort of works this way, where you know, especially when you're creating it from scratch, you have to kind of feel out the timing, you know, and see what's going to work. And so we're finally at a point now where, you know, originally, like I said, I sort of did all the voices, but as we got the actors in, we got ideas for new stuff, and, you know, they brought something to the performance, so some things got retimed, and, you know, you just kind of feel it out. And eventually, once we get all the timing tweaked out and I start replacing some of the final images with, you know, updated, because you can even see, like, some of the models of her profile, like the eye was a little like weird looking because we had an original model that we just like threw together because we needed something to put in there, because we had the drawings, but you know, we just threw something together fast and threw it in, and then eventually we'll do the updated pretty one with all the highlights and gradations and all that stuff, and then it just slowly, you know, you just replace the file and rename it, and it updates it in the editing software. Yeah, so I'll show you guys. Does anyone have any questions? Mm-hmm.
So, I got here late. Sorry, I don't know if you answered this already.
No, yeah.
So, like, do you draw the stuff online or whatever for the animation? Like, how does all that work?
Well, so this panel is kind of interactive. So if you want to come up here, I have a bunch of drawings from the actual episodes up here.
Okay.
I also have some fun model sheets from some shows like Flintstones and things like that, if you guys want to come look at some like Hanna-Barbera model sheets.
And what kind of program do you use?
So I'm going to show you guys right now. I'm going to open it up and show you guys kind of the inside of the software.
Did you go to school for this, basically?
I did, yeah, but I mean, you can learn it on YouTube. Or just come to this class and then you'll know everything. Huh?
It just seems so complex and there's so much.
He said this was for a student.
So this is Adobe After Effects, and it's basically, it's editing software mixed with Photoshop.
Looks a lot like Lightroom.
Yeah, it's very similar to Lightroom. The Lightroom kind of jacked the interface from it because it's already familiar to a lot of. So here, let's.
Do you do the animation all by yourself, or you have a team?
I do it all by myself.
Oh my god! Yo!
That's why it's taking me so long.
Man, props though. Yeah.
So let's see the strawberry milk. So the strawberry milk one we were looking at, I'll open that one up and go check it out. So these are all the versions of strawberry milk that you guys have here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I said 30. And so one of the great things about organizing it this way too is that it kind of works like putting a puzzle together almost, right? Like once you have your soundtrack, once you have your storyboards in there, what I do is I break each shot into a different file, like project file. So you guys will see on here that once it opens up, it takes a minute because there's a lot of files in this. So. Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of drawn, and you just, but yeah, I did have to take a lot of drawing classes in school. But I was in an art school that was geared, it was the Art Institute, so a lot of it's geared towards people that already have degrees, and they're just going back to get like a bachelor's degree or something like that. So I was in school with a lot of people who were already working in the industry. Now I think the Art Institute has a lot more kids that are fresh out of high school, but when I went to school, I mean, I definitely was not the best artist in my class. There was a few people who were better than me.
But you're really good.
In pizza we crust. It's an Illuminati pizza shirt.
Yeah, that's what I thought it looked like.
I don't know if this is a silly question or not, but is this printed out or did you actually draw this?
Those are the originals. Yeah.
Oh, wow. This is really good.
Isn't that cool?
Oh, me?
Oh.
For the robot voices, were there any other actors or characters in particular that you drew inspiration from?
Yeah, so the way I want the show to work is each season the robots are going to evolve. So for the first season, it's going to stick with that kind of Mazingazir, old school like robot, Astro Boy design, Mega Man kind of stuff. And then in the second season, it's going to get a little more Robotech. And then in the third season, it's going to move more into Evangelion, kind of lizardy, reptilian looking. Nice. So if you look here, so this is the episode for Strawberry Milk. We've got the viewing screen in the middle, and this is like title safe, action safe stuff. So you can turn this on and off here. So you can see the whole screen. For speed, I have this right here, which is basically an image sequence. So if you look at this, what I do in order to make the software run faster, and this is just kind of a geek thing that not everyone will understand, but because I have all the scenes down here, if you see all of these, see these here, these are the actual scenes, and these purple things underneath are the storyboards. So, like if you come to this section here, this is the actual scene. When you click on it, you've got all your pieces in here. So I'll let it load up for a second. Computer's being really slow today. You'd think it being cold in here, it would really like that, but it's baby. So yeah, so here's a little scene here, and if you see, we've got Akira right here. So he's a piece, and then inside of this file, Katsu's here, and the animation is all happening. So and right here, he's kind of freaking out. So we go into this file here, and you can see these are all the little pieces. So these are all the eye blinks and everything happening along the timeline. So he goes from here to this freak out. Whoa! And then if you look here, you see how this is an Illustrator file. So the way this works is what I actually do is I draw this in Illustrator. And then these are all the files for here inside of this episode. So if you look, we can open this up.
How long does it take for you to draw one scene?
Not very long. You mean like sketch it out, or you mean like remake
actually
it?
Drawing it out?
It all depends. The great thing about Illustrator is when you already have some shapes created, you can kind of copy and paste. But that only gets you so far. Like you guys can see, I'm sort of okay with it being a little stiff right now and just kind of focusing on telling the story. And then later on, when I go in and make each individual movement and do all that stuff, it's going to get a little bit more complicated because I'll have to do more work. But for now, I'm just going to rely on the story to tell itself and then make those changes as I go. Because for me, like, I always think like quantity in this sense is better than quality, because you can always go back and fix the quality. You know, you can always like improve things, but you can't always, you know, if you're going to hire an actor to come in for 2 hours and only record 1 episode, like record 5 episodes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And work on all of them at once, and then you can like. So like right now we have 2 episodes finished, and we're still working on 3 of them. So we're getting them up to the point where every scene has you know, all of the animation roughed in. So I don't know, it just makes more sense, because I mean, I feel like most people too, like if we release this stuff, they're gonna watch it one time and go, oh, that was cool, and then like never watch it again, you know?
Yeah.
There will be some people that will come back and watch it, but I feel like those people, if we update it, it'll be like, hey, we updated it, go check it out again, and then they can see the new animation. You know, it's like, wow, it looks really good, you know?
Go back and watch the previous episodes to remind themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the way this show works is we're gonna plan on putting Easter eggs in the episodes anyway. So going back and rewatching them for those little Easter eggs that we're gonna drop in will be kind of cool. So, but yeah, so these are all the little pieces. So if you see all these here, this is closed mouths, glasses. So his glasses can kind of move on his face, and we've got like eye blinks here. So this is closed eyes, open eyes. So, and we can turn these layers on and off inside of After Effects and time out the animation. And so these work with, like this file here is, this is 3,300 pixels by almost 2,000 pixels. So it's way bigger than HD, and it's 24 frames a second. So, you know, each second has 24 individual little frames in it. And so we kind of time this out that way, and you can see, so like this frame lasts 2 seconds and 3 frames. You know, so this shot here where he's like, this is 1, 2, whoa, God, no, don't kill me. And then, whoo, looks like maybe, oh. See, so look, I changed his face a while back, and I haven't updated it. It still has the other animation on it, but I went in and cleaned him up a little bit more, because you see I wanted to add a little bit of shadows at the top of his hair, but I found a little stray pixel that was like dancing up in the corner, and so I deleted it, and it threw off the center. So I have to go in and just scoot his face over. But I've already got it rendered, and it was already fine the way it was, so I'm not worried about it. But those are just little details that you might have to go in and fix. But the great thing about doing it this way is, if I fix that, I don't have to re-render the whole animation. I can just re-render that section and just replace it in this image sequence, because I have this image sequence right here, and that's what it's rendering. Like if I rendered the project with all those little animated layers and everything, it would take like 12 hours to render. But if I just render this animation sequence, which is just it's like a PNG or a JPEG sequence, and it just renders every single frame as a picture. And then I just re-import that in on top of my animation. So I can scrub it really fast and look at it without having to go through every single step, and it's like trying to interpolate every layer of every pre-comp and all that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's basically what this is. So like reveal source and project, reveal and explorer. So this image sequence, that one file, is all of these frames. So you can see, if you view the list.
Wow.
So this is 3,167 frames. And so back in the old days, you had to draw all these frames, right? Like you hear like animation, like you gotta draw, you know, you have a team and they just draw every single frame. But it still works the same way. Like the animator's not drawing the character and the background and everything and painting it and then move on to the next one. They paint one background, and the character is drawn on a transparency. So like this is one that I did in college. This was a character I created called the Time Traveling Cadaver. So he's just a dead guy that travels time. And this is how old animation used to be done, where they draw it on, so you draw it on paper first, and then you lay down,
Sorry, contrast.
and you lay down a piece of transparency over it, you trace it, and this is just traced with a Sharpie. And then I have a vinyl paint, which I bought from a cartoon shop in Los Angeles, which I think it's closed down now because no one buys vinyl paint anymore. But back in the early 2000s, I was able to still get it, and I bought these from them. So if you see, it's painted on the back. So I had all my different purples and my shadows and everything, and you lay in all your shadows and your highlights, and then you do the main color on the back of it. And then everything just kind of sits in. So I draw, you know, I knew that I wanted shadows on his lines and then his buttons and all of that. And then, yeah, I just paint it on the back. So, yeah, and then you just, you know, so I have, you know, that many of these. It was a whole animation. And then, you know, you put this one down and you hit the take a picture button, and then you put the next one down and take a picture, and then you put the next one. So it takes a long time, but it's really fun. And it looks really good. Like, because you're doing it the traditional way, there's just something about it that looks amazing. You can kind of fake it with this and make it look kind of similar. Like, there are a few techniques that I've found that give it that kind of cell animation look where you add like a gentle shadow behind it. Because there really is, like there is some distance between the background and here. Even though it's laying flat on top of it, it does cast a gentle shadow. So it kind of gives it that risen look and it makes it look like a cell painting. So there's all kinds of fun little tricks you can do in the computer to make it look like it. But if you're not familiar with how it looks, you're not going to know. You know, so it's really fun to do stuff like that, though. With this show, though, I mean, part of the fun for me is like it's almost kind of like tongue-in-cheek, like poking fun at how simple anime can be sometimes, but at the same time, it's sort of an homage to it too. So you know, it's not like making fun of it. But.
It reminds me a little bit of Kappa Mikey, a little bit.
What's that called?
Kappa Mikey. I don't know if you've heard of Kappa Mikey.
No, I haven't. What's that on?
Well, it used to be back in the day in Nicktoons.
Oh, cool.
And Mike Turner Nicholas was the lead, and it was basically a dude who goes to Japan to become an actor. So he's an American guy, and he becomes an actor in Japan.
Cool.
And there's like a bunch of anime.
I'll look it up. Kappa Mikey?
Yeah.
Cool.
Anime has cameos. And
yeah. Oh, nice.
His character design is like American cartoon based.
Uh-huh.
When he goes to Japan,
everyone looks anime.
Oh my gosh,
it's
that's
so
hilarious.
funny. He sticks out like a sore thumb. It's great.
That's so funny. It's like the Canadians in South Park.
Yeah.
Canadians.
Essentially.
Oh, Kevin.
But yeah,
I have a question. I don't know if you answered it already. Sorry if you did. So can you do like the drawing and stuff like online, or do you do it like how you said, like you draw it
online, like in like a
tablet?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I just like drawing on paper just because I don't like being on the computer all the time.
Yeah.
Like I kind of like to give my eyes a break, and I also like the tactile paper and pencil. You know, it's just something about that to me. It's just it's hard for me to work for hours and hours and hours on a tablet, but it's really easy for me to work hours and hours and hours on a sketchbook or on storyboard paper.
Oh, okay. So you prefer traditional art over digital art? Anything?
But only because I feel like it's better for my body.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Like if there were health benefits to doing it on a tablet, I would do it on a tablet, but there's not. It's just, it hurts your eyes. It gives you like screen fatigue. And I still, you know, I like to come home at night and like watch a show on Netflix. And if I've been staring at the computer all day long, it's like, whew, now I'm done with work. Let's stare at another screen for 2 hours before I go to bed. You know, it's like you never give yourself a break. You're just like locked in the whole time, and I just get sick of that. Like I have a UV coating on my glasses, but my glasses are getting old and I think it's wearing off. But like if I sit like this for a few hours without my glasses on, I'll get a migraine in like 6 hours.
Do you have the yellow tint?
No, it's just like an invisible coat.
They have the yellow ones you can put over your glasses, and it's super good for
really
coding and gaming and stuff like that.
Sweet. Okay, yeah, I'll look into that.
Oh, and how do you transfer it to like a computer?
Oh.
You scan it or something?
Yeah, I just scan it in. I mean, sometimes if it's a really simple drawing and I know what it needs to look like, I just take a picture on my phone and just cut it up in Photoshop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I leave it really simple. So here, I can show you on here. So like, if we turn this off, come down here and we turn off this shot. Stop it. I don't animate very much on my laptop because it's very frustrating. His glasses. That's so funny.
Extreme.
So see, so here was the original shot. Why is this like that? It should be. Yeah. So see here, there to there. And then all of these here. So see, so this was the original storyboard, and I'm sitting there, and what are you staring at? Ah, nothing at all, thank you. Dude, seriously? Where'd you get that strawberry milk? And so this shot here is, yeah. And then there's a sketch, which is.
It looks so serious.
So yeah, so it moves over. So this is the whole shot. So when we made the scene, you know, it's that character with this character, but because we already have them in files, we just drag the files in. So.
So I thought when you put it in there, it's already like colored and everything. So do you color it on the computer?
Yeah. So here. So we'll take a look at it. So this is the shot. Any minute now. This is it thinking down here. This little. Think bar.
Since it's in Florida, it thinks it's taking a vacation.
Yeah, right. There you go. It's at Margaritaville right now.
Yep.
Here, we'll open it up. Maybe it'll be easier.
It's going to Disney World anytime.
Mm-hmm. Don't go to Disney. We'll never get our IP back.
Oh, no.
They'll be like, yeah, we own this now.
They monopolize.
You opened your files on Disney property. We own it.
No, that's definitely how they do things.
Disney streaming
I was on a college program with Disney, and anything you created while working for them is automatically their property.
Yeah, that's why Tim Burton made Nightmare with Disney, because they could prove that he drew Jack Skellington on their paper while he worked there. Because they keep all your trash.
Oh.
So you have your little trash can by your desk, and you draw on your Disney paper with Mickey Mouse little ears on it. Everything's drawn on Disney paper with Disney pencils, and you're not even allowed to take Disney pencils home.
Yep.
Oh.
And they keep all your trash in the file cabinet
Oh, wow.
under your name.
That's specifically with the Imagineers, though, because
That's
it's all intellectual property.
Right. They own your dreams.
Oh my God.
Ain't
That's
nightmare.
terrifying.
Yeah. That, a lot of animators call Disney the machine
Oh.
because it cares not for your feelings. But yeah, here. So I'll just. Sorry, this is being really bitchy. So here's. Come on.
I believe the last one is this. It's in the corner.
We'll just take it. Does anyone have any other questions while this is pulling up? But yeah, I'm going to show you. We'll just let this load.
Does it look like, I don't know how to describe this, but cartoonish? Like still if you color it, like can you color it not on a computer or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, that's so like that one there was, you know, that was hand painted. That's another way you can do it and make it look like animation. You know, I think the only reason why you don't see a lot of hand colored animations is because each pencil stroke is going to be different. So if you've got a whole lot of pencil strokes for a moving animation, as soon as you stop moving, the pencil strokes are going to start moving, and the person's going to realize that it's just a still, and you can only hold their attention so long before they disconnect. You know, so they see that the movement stopped because they're used to the whole screen moving. So one of the things that makes animation so captivating that you don't realize is when they shoot it like that, and when the animes shoot it like that, they don't ever really hold a frame. They are taking a photo of a frame multiple times, so the dust on the actual prints will move a little. And there's actually little pieces of dust moving sometimes in animation frames, and that's, your brain is noticing that, even though you're not seeing it, and it's making the scene look more interesting because there's more stuff moving. That's like when you go back and watch really old school animation and you're like, God, it looks so crazy, like it looks so good. But a lot of that is the dust particles. So that's kind of one of the, if you guys have ever watched those animations where like they're really simple but like the lines are always moving, that's sort of it's the same kind of trick where if the character's not going to move a lot, they can move the lines and your eye is compromising, like, okay, something's happening, I'll keep looking at it, right? It doesn't get bored. So that's kind of the deal. It can get annoying, but yeah.
How do you think of the titles? Do you just title it by the scene, or like as you're making your outline, you're like, okay, this episode title is this?
Yeah. I usually, I kind of just brainstorm. You know, sometimes I'll make the episode first and then I'll title it and then I'll think of a better title and I'll rename it, you know, so that happens, but yeah, this is really annoying. I don't know why this isn't letting me see that. Oh, because it wanted to move. Okay, cool. Let's let it save real quick and it should be better. There we go.
So you said you do soundtrack first and then voice acting?
Well, so you put the soundtrack and the voice acting together.
Oh.
But it's really just what, thank you. Yeah, great. Solid. So a lot of times though, sound effects are not as important as voiceover, especially with stuff like this. With the fight scenes, it may be a little bit more important, but we may just put a placeholder sound there, which I can just go or you know, like you can just do that until you get to the point where you need the sound effects. But a lot of we have tons of episodes that we've done where it's just like, you know, and then it's just me doing noises, and then we just kind of time it out and figure out where those sounds need to go.
You D. Bradley Baker it.
Do what?
D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah, totally.
So do you do it frame by frame then, right?
Yeah, kind of. I do it scene by scene first. So the reason why the soundtrack is great is because the soundtrack gives you the guide for how long your scenes need to last. So when this character's talking, you're probably going to want to see that character. And then maybe like right before they finish talking, you cut to another character, right? And you see their response, you know, something like that. And then once you have those in there as placeholders, then you can count out how many frames that is. So if it's 1 second, 12 frames, you know, that's 36 frames. You know, so now you know that scene is 36 frames. So you go to your animator and say, hey, this is a reaction. It's 36 frames long. You know? And so they know that that's probably going to be shot on 2s, so it's going to be half of that, so it'll be like.
I don't know. How long, like on average, do you think it takes you to make like one episode?
If I worked on it full time, it'd probably only take about 3 weeks. But I only get to work on it part time, so it takes like 6 to 8.
Wow.
6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. But you know, since I'm working on multiple editors, it'll slightly move them. So I just have to go back in and just shift things back overseas. But like, yeah, I think his mouth, I may have moved his mouth down, but I think it moved down a little far. So let's see here. But yeah, so this file, so this character was traced from the storyboard, or this character, most likely this character was already made because it's just a front view. So we have mouths and everything, and if we need specific mouths, then we'll make them. But let's see the deal in Explorer. And that's what I meant earlier. So when I was talking, I said these were really, really simple storyboards, and it's because we've already created a lot of the characters. So we just really needed reference. Like, this is the front view, and he's going to say this. This is the 3/4 view, and he's going to say this. So the same thing with like South Park. They're not going to animate Cartman coming on from the right, you know, 800 times or however many episodes they have. They just reuse the same animation and just change the mouths. So we're able to kind of do some of those tricks sometimes and sort of pick the places that we make new animation and new characters for. So like that, where did you get that strawberry milk? Like that was a kin that was made for that episode. But we may end up using that extreme pose somewhere else because that could also be like a, you know, instead of the hand up here, we have maybe a fist back here. And then we could use the same face and just tweak the body. And now we have like, you know, and then we could just do one frame like this and each look, you know, so. But yeah, so the nose moves, the mouths move, that's all. So like things like that. So see, so we have a few pieces here. See these guys? They got away. X. It's supposed to be on edge. Looks like we've got some extras. So that one.
Do you have a favorite character so far in this animation?
Yeah, I really like Ken a lot. Tatsu's been a lot of fun. He's been the hardest to make, I think, because I wanna keep him kind of anime, but he's such a goon that you know that kind of more goony like anime look where they don't have like the square jaw and the eyes and they don't look like everyone else. They kind of have that more like unique face. I wanted him to have a little bit more unique face. It's taken a little longer to develop, but only because I've been working on all the other characters at the same time, so he kept kind of getting pushed back for a while. And I'm still not 100% happy with him, but he's getting there. I'm starting to really like him. So yeah, but this is how we're making this show. If you're drawing it frame by frame, you may approach it a little differently. Like there's some animation software that I use sometimes for individual animations, but so yeah, you see where his mouth is right here. So it probably needs to be moved up a little bit. Let's see, so his mouth. And so what I'm actually going to do for this, so that I don't have to click on all of these and move them together, they have a cool thing in here that's it's just a little node. So you go into your solids here, there's a null, it's called the null object. You put that here, and it's just basically like a little white square. And so we put that where the mouth goes. Right in the center of his mouth. And just turn it off. And then we're going to take all the mouths. And see how it says 69 here? Mm-hmm. So that's the frame that they're parented to. So whenever I move the head, which is 69 is the head frame right now. See how they're all numbered here? Oh look, no, it looks like they're all on mouth closed. What is this one? What have I done here? So this is 81. So this is to the head. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to parent this to the null. And then I'm going to parent the null to the head. And the reason why I do that is so I can have this little guide. You know, I could have just parented it to the head, but I wanted the null because it's at the top. So I'll remember now that I should have done that from the beginning, but I was probably in a hurry. So yeah, so now I can take this null and just scoot it up, and it moves up the mouth. And it looks like maybe all of it could move up. So I'm going to also parent this to the I'm digging that. Close enough for government work. So that'll work. And then maybe his eyes could move up a hair, but maybe not. I'll play with that a little later. I could spend an hour just on this. It's like
Tweaking a little thing.
But unfortunately, that's the only annoying thing about updating these files sometimes is they can get a little tweaked. Usually they're fine, but because I'm getting down to like final details, so like I just did a couple of little things where I fixed his hair up here and I added a little shadow there, and I also tweaked the gradient a little bit. So there was a bunch of little things that were done to kind of just, kind of finish it out. Still not really sure what I want to do with this shadow here. I'm still just kind of playing with it. But sorry this never loaded. I don't know why the graphics card is being such a baby. But like, the cool thing about After Effects that's really neat is that you can you have all the layers to work with, so you can really like get in and and you don't have to start that way. It ends up kind of being like Photoshop where your layers can spiral out of control once you really start messing with stuff and you just keep adding layers and adding detail. But really, I mean, the most important thing you have to remember is your story and your soundtrack. That's the basis for everything you're going to do. And as long as you have a good story, and as long as you have a soundtrack that's timed out the way it needs to be, in your mind as you're seeing the action, if it sounds good as a radio play and it's entertaining to listen to, it'll work. So just stick to the plan, see it through, and then watch it and see if maybe you need to just get better at timing. Maybe you heard it a little slower or faster, you know what I mean? Maybe, and then go back to your soundtrack, tweak your soundtrack, and then move all your animation to fit the new timing. So, but I always say that's the best way to work, because a lot of artists get really caught up in working on one scene, and they make that one scene perfect, and they never finish their animations. So what you have to do is you have to be okay with letting things look bad. Like, there's been artists that I've worked with in the past where, they see the mouths moved and they have like a panic attack. They're like, it's not where it was before. It was perfect. I'm like, relax. It's fine. Like, just move it until it looks good. It's like, it's like, hey, it's okay. You've got 18 other scenes that you have to worry about. If you have a heart attack on scene 5, you'll never make it to scene 32. So you have to be okay with letting things look meh. And then knowing that you can go back and fix it. Just make a note, hey, these eyes are not right, or hey, this is not right. So I spend a lot of time, I'll render these out, I'll watch it, I'll make notes, I'll go back through the notes and I'll tweak all the things that need to be tweaked, and then I'll make another render, And that's kind of how you have to think about it, But, a lot of the episodes start very simply, it's just a few drawings, to the soundtrack and just kind of figuring it all out. I mean, a few of the episodes just started as soundtracks and I just had one still frame of Arctic just standing there like this and you just hear all their voices. It's just so that we can listen to it, upload it to Vimeo or whatever. I send it to the team and we just listen to the soundtrack.
Do you do the music?
Yeah.
I guess mainly about like work-life balance, because right now I work as like a draftsman, but I also have my own projects that I will want to work on.
Yeah.
What do you do like on the side, or like do you have any good ideas about how to go about that, so that you can also have time and energy and like have your eyes ready to like work on a computer and work on your art?
Yeah. So discipline is really important as an artist. There's a lot of people that want to be artists and want to own their own businesses because they think that punching in and out and having a boss sucks. But if you're going to be successful as an independent artist, you have to be the mean boss that you hate to yourself. So we had a goal. At the beginning of the year, I sent out an email to the team and said, hey, these are all the things we need to have done by the end of the year. We only have about 3/4 of those things done. So we're in crunch time right now. So I sent another email 2 months ago. I was like, hey guys, we're not where we need to be. I was telling them about that email I sent out where I was like, hey, we're not where we need to be. It's the end of the year. We're in crunch time right now. Remember that long email that I sent?
Yeah.
With everything that we needed to do. So right now my schedule is I get up every morning at 5:30. I work for 4 hours on Robot Girl. At 10:30 I switch over to work. And if I finish everything on my to-do list, I go back and work on Robot Girl until 7. And then I go home. And so that's my schedule right now. And I do that, I try to do that 7 days a week. And sometimes I do it 6 days a week if I just like need a break, you know. You have to listen to your body, you have to give yourself some downtime. But I would definitely recommend, if you really, really want to be successful at this, don't make Netflix and, you know, video games your relaxation. Because if you're just on screens all the time, you never give your body a break. You're much better off reading a book. You know, like just reading a book. And then that way when you get tired, just go to sleep, you know, get good sleep, make sure you're rested. But you know, most artists say they love to work at night, but my advice to them is if you can get used to waking up early and getting really good work done those first 3 or 4 hours you're awake, you will find that's the most creative time that, as an artist, that you have, because your mind is really fresh. Even if you don't really even need to eat anything that early, just drink a bunch of water and just get to work, you know, and just let your body kind of wake up, and all your endorphins are going to be flying because your body's just going to be coming to life, and it's a really, really good time to be creative. Does that answer your question?
I guess partially, yeah. I was also wondering, like, you were kind of talking about earlier how, like, your eyes get tired sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I face a lot, too, since the type I work, you know, the type of, like, work I do requires, like, looking at a computer, too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of...
A lot of, like, AutoCAD and 3D Max and stuff?
Yeah. So I'm wondering if there are, like, other lines of work, you know, that you might recommend to where you can still have time to work on things, but also like be ready for it.
You mean like so like
where it's not too much strain on your eyes, really.
Oh, so you're thinking about maybe getting away from drafting and doing something else, or?
Yes, possibly.
I mean, if I were you, I'd maybe try to do something just to mitigate the strain on your eyes. Like the gentleman who was sitting there was talking about those glasses you can wear that kind of, you know, they keep it from being so severe. One of the things that I like to do to minimize eye strain, I mean, I wouldn't recommend quitting your job. You know, I would just say, like, one of the things that I make myself do is every hour or every 2 hours, I try to set an alarm on my phone. And when it goes off, I make myself get up and walk around, or I'll do stretches. One of the things in Miyazaki's animation studio that they do is they have someone that comes through at different times of the day and make the animators get up and do like stretches and different things to loosen yourself up. So maybe every 2 hours, just take like a 3-minute break or a 4-minute break and let yourself just walk around and kind of, you know, look at stuff, and, you know, give your eyes a chance to look far away, because if they're just looking this close. One of my tricks that I found that really works for me, if you have a deep desk, push everything as far away from you as possible to where you have to where your keyboard is like way over here. One thing it does is it reduces your risk of carpal tunnel, because you're not doing this. So you have your arms stretched out, and then your mouse is over here, and your monitor is like back there. That's something that I really like, and it seems to be a really good workflow for me. I think that's the best solution. And then maybe getting like a UV screen for your computer that you can tape to the top, and you can just, you know, flip it on, flip it off, so that, you know, if there's like really detailed work you need to do, you can take it off and then put it back on. Maybe try that, and then if that helps, then you won't have to quit your job.
That's like a last resort.
Right. But yeah, try pushing your stuff back away from you, and you're gonna catch yourself like leaning in, you know, and just make yourself sit back straight in your chair. You know, keep your back, you know, right. Yeah, because posture is very important. Oh look, it's exciting to work now. Okay. What time do you guys have? What time is it?
3:16.
3:16.
So have we been in here for 2 hours?
It didn't feel like that.
Right?
It just felt like a...
I know I was nervous when they gave me a 2-hour panel. I was like, am I gonna be able to fill it? But I guess these panels always run really short. So this is the first time I've gotten to do 2 hours, so it's really nice. Thank you guys for coming. Did you like it? Yeah, thank you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, we can keep talking about stuff, and I can show you some more animation if you'd like to see it.
Definitely.
Did you need anything?
No, I'm good.
Oh. Do you do the soundtrack yourself, like, with your band, or do you hire some art, like musical artists?
Yeah, so I'm working with a guy named Ricardo Contreras, and he's a sound engineer for Sentai Filmworks.
Oh,
yeah,
that's what he good.
Yeah, he's doing our audio for us. So
he does soundtrack music?
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah, so here I can, so this was the first take that we did. This was how it started. So I think I had a few of the art of the voice actors were maybe brought in at this point, but you guys can kind of see how it started. So this is a very early version. This is when you're just working with storyboards and timing out your soundtracks. So I wanted he's gonna be like shadowed eyes, right?
What's he looking at? He's been standing there like that for the past 3 hours. Is he dead?
He's still breathing, so I don't think he's dead.
Meditating, maybe? I think he's looking.
Devil's triangle.
No!
Devil's what?
Why are you so calm? She just came out of nowhere.
Guys, it's just Miku. She's in the club too.
They've never noticed me. No one does. It's my curse.
You were saying something about the devil's
triangle.
Look at this cluster of activity here and here. It repeats itself almost geometrically around key points.
Oh, yeah! Look, it's like all bunched together.
Is there a pattern?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's not a pattern I can track, but there's definitely increased activity around the Devil's Triangle.
Convergence. The energy veins of the planet converge along these points.
Oh, she's right! The ley lines!
Magnetics. Miku, you're a genius!
So that's how it started. And this is what it looks like now. Let's see. And like I said, we're still waiting on sound design, so it's not 100% there yet.
It's not perfect yet.
And I ended up adding a little bit of time to the beginning because I wanted to add the little typewriter stuff at the beginning. So I haven't added the shadows yet, but it'll have that kind of shadowy.
What's he looking at?
He's been standing there like that for the past 3 hours.
Is he dead?
He's still breathing, so I don't think he's dead.
Meditating, maybe?
I think he's looking for something.
Devil's triangle.
Why are you so calm? She just came out of nowhere.
Guys, it's just Miku. She's in the club too.
You never noticed me. No one does. It's my curse.
You were saying something about the devil's
triangle.
Like the ring.
Look at this cluster of activity here. And here. It repeats itself almost geometrically around key points.
Oh, yeah! Look, it's like all bunched together.
Is there a pattern?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's not a pattern that I can track, but there's definitely increased activity around the Devil's Triangle.
Convergence.
Come what?
The energy veins of the planet converge along these points.
Oh, she's right! The ley lines!
Magnetics. Miku, you're a genius.
He's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Right, so see how it kind of evolved? We sort of figured out some beats in there, and we wanted to do something different where she was drawing the lines, so that's going to be kind of like maybe a space theme. So when we do the final, it'll have that sort of, you know, universe kind of thing where she's drawing the lines and connecting the points, and they'll light up and stuff, and then we'll pull back and we'll have this kind of half globe of light. And then I'm thinking what they're going to do, you know, I drew them kind of where they were, but I think instead of having the cut screens, they'll sort of fade in from the darkness. Right? Oh, she's right, the ley lines, you know, then he fades in and magnetics, you know, so they'll kind of all fade in around it. So she's kind of the center of attention, like standing over the globe, you know, like the crystal ball kind of thing. So yeah. So yeah, just trying to, you know, but you just sort of feel out those beats. And like even there, you know, I feel like with the finger popping up, you know, that's just kind of rough animation where she's like finding the points. But like that needed to hold a little longer to give Akira time to be like, oh, you know, so it's just that kind of creepy hand that's there and there. You know, and maybe that scene needs to hang a little long to make the audience feel awkward. You know, so it's like, why is this so long? You know, and then a little shot of her, but then give Akira that kind of moment. So that's something that I can go in and tweak and just make that scene longer and make that cut a little later. But that doesn't involve changing the soundtrack. That's just you know, you're just giving this a little extra half second or something.
What was your inspiration in general for Robot Girl? Like, what made you decide to actually start the project?
That's a great question. So the reason why I wanted to do it was because over the last 15 years, as Japan has become more, they're looking to America to inform what shows they make more of and what shows are popular, because people don't buy anime as much in Japan as they do in America. We just have more people. So there's more stuff that we're consuming. So things have started to get more and more sexualized when they have lead female characters, and there's a really bad stigma in America for boys won't buy a show if it's a female lead. It has to be a boy as the lead, and that's all boys like, and that's all boys buy. That's stupid. Anyone knows that's dumb. So I wanted to make a show that had a strong female lead, that wasn't sexualized, it was just a cool story with a bunch of moving parts, it was really complex, it was for young kids and older kids, and it just has a little bit for everybody. It has a bunch of different tones in it. You know, the Robot Girl stuff, I want to feel a little more My Hero, where it's got those really dramatic fight scenes and the big monologues and, you know, that sort of Dragon Ball flair. And then when you watch Arctic stuff, it's all this really close stuff, and they're just sitting there talking, and there's all these mysteries to solve. You know, so you've got all these fun little beats happen, but it's all the same show. You know, so it was just sort of a thing that I wanted to do to show the industry that they're doing it wrong. Like, stop making it about sex. That's not the point. Like, there's so many great shows from the past that were amazing, like Mega Man, what a great property, you know? And it's like, what if you took that Mega Man character and made him something with a complex story, with all these layers and all these things going on? So, yeah, I thought it was just, it's something that no one's done. And so I just wanted to make something different. That, you know, that was the first real mix of American and Japanese animation. And, you know, the big thing that bothers me is that every show that the West has tried to make that has an anime influence is always written like a Hollywood script. And they're terrible because Hollywood sucks. So I want to really give it that Japanese edge where it's about the inner monologues and all of the character conflicts and, you know, all these kind of, you know, there's the tongue-in-cheek moments and there's the silly stuff, but like, really fleshing out all of these characters and letting them sort of exist in the world. But yeah, my goal with it is, you know, if I don't get to make the whole 3-season arc, like, I'm not filling everything in. I'm not saying everything, you know, in just like plain English. It's a lot of it is implied. So I want to leave a lot of room in the sandbox for people to do fan fiction and write their own stories and make their own thing out of it. You know, I'm just building the sandbox, but you know, I don't have to build all the sandcastles. You know, so that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And I also wanted something, because when we go to these conventions, you know, a lot of times some of the places, some of the studios get mad if we sell prints of our characters. You know, because we don't own the intellectual property. So like with the characters that I have here, you know, I give the actors in the show copies of their prints. You know, Brittany took some Miku prints with her, and I'm like, she's like, well, do I need to bring you money? I'm like, no. It was like, that's yours. This is like our thing, you know. So I want to share that with them, and you know, it's really cool to get to hire my voice actor friends that I've worked with for 15 years and like pay them through Patreon. You know, the same rate that Funimation pays them. It's like, no, like, here, thank you. That's great, you know? And they're excited to do it because they get input. You know, if they get a really good idea for a line or anything like that, like, we try it, and if it works, we keep it. You know, so it's a fun, collaborative, kind of cool thing. Yeah, great question.
It's like a passion project.
Yeah.
Between everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I just kind of want to keep experimenting with it and just, you know, see what works for this show, you know, because I mean, there's definitely some things that I've tried that I've just been like, no, I'm gonna try it this way, and then find something else that works.
And when the episodes are done and you have your first season all done, will it be like on YouTube, or would it be on your website with Shepard?
Well, RobotGirlChronicles.com is up now, so you guys can go check it out. Yeah, there's some videos are just password protected for patrons, but there are some for free, like some of the ones I've shown you. The longer 2-minute episodes, like the Fight for Freedom where she's fighting the robot, and then the one where she's on the ship, like those are password protected. But once we have a lot more of that stuff done, we'll start releasing things. The reason why we're doing the Arctic shorts is because those are the ones we're going to release to the public, because it doesn't give any of the story away. It's just these like fun little like shorts. So we're going to release those, and then the patrons will see Robot Girl's shorts and their shorts. So they know, they kind of see how it all ties together, whereas everyone who's not on Patreon will just see the Arctic stuff and be like, what is this? I don't even know what's happening. Like, this is so weird, you know? So, and I kind of like that.
Give a little bit of mystery.
Yeah.
What about the casting process? Like, did you already have in mind from the beginning who you wanted for everybody?
Yeah, you know, I spent that first year when we were writing it, I was thinking a lot about it. We went through a few different rosters, and yeah, it just kind of felt right. Like, I knew that I wanted to use certain actors, but I wasn't sure what part I wanted to use them for. And like for me, I knew that I wanted to use Brittany, and I knew I wanted to use Lucy Christian, but I wasn't sure who I wanted to play Robot Girl. So I cast Lucy as Robot Girl, but then I was like, I gotta write a part for Brittany because she really wanted that part. And so I gave her Miku. So now she's got this cool character in the group, and it's like her own group. You know, she's not like a sidekick or something like that. She's got her own kind of team. So.
Who's the leader? Is she the leader?
Yeah, so Soji is the leader, the one who is like giving the meeting briefings. And yeah, it's kind of funny. So Akira, his friend with the glasses, at first he doesn't believe any of this conspiracy stuff. Like Soji's like, something's going on, there's aliens and robots everywhere, we gotta find out what's. He's like, dude, no, there's not. Like, that would be on the news if there were robots everywhere, you know? But the news is covering it up. So he's like, it is on the news. Read between the lines. You know, look, all these power plant meltdowns, seismic events. It's like, yeah, man, it's called climate change. You know?
That's funny.
So it's, you know, it's that kind of thing. So, you know, there's an, you know, so Akira doesn't really believe this stuff. He's just kind of there to basically be the be the good friend to take his friend to the mental asylum when his brain finally snaps. But as he spends more time in the group, he starts seeing evidence that he can't explain away. So he slowly starts to become a believer. So when we actually see him in season 1, he's going to be kind of the bully.
Are you giving spoilers away?
Yeah.
But I like shows that have like a strong ensemble cast or
Yeah, you know,
different
he's,
dynamics.
yeah, but you know, they're sort of poking fun at Soji, you know, he's like, dude, I saw one of those weird bursts of light in the sky again. It's like, dude, someone on the train would have seen it besides you, you know, and his friends are all, the other friends are all laughing at them and stuff, and then we get to kind of see that growth of Akira kind of coming to the meetings, and you know, the two other guys are actually Yakuza who lost their boss in a robot battle. So they're believers. They saw a robot. They didn't know it was a robot. They just saw like a weird alien, you know, monster creature. But they knew it was something, so they end up signing up to Arctic, and they're all like, they're you know, it's a culmination of all their resources together that kind of make them cool. And I want to also, with these characters, I'm sort of turning the archetypes on their heads. Right, so instead of Akira being the sort of like fat friend that hangs out in the background, he's kind of a main protagonist that we're following through Arctic. Usually someone like Soji, who's the leader of the group, is going to be the, you know, hoorah, we see everything through his eyes, but I've pushed him a little more to the back, because that's normally what you would see as him being the leader. And you have a guy like Ken, who's the really crazy, like, where'd you get that strawberry milk? But he's actually the tech guy. So one of his side jobs in the Yakuza is he finds old phones and electronics, and he fixes them, but he also makes them untraceable. So he sells them on the black market to make extra money so that people can have untraceable cellular devices.
Oh.
So he is able to tweak out their machines to make them super badass, and he's got hacking skills and all this stuff. So, and then they've also, you know, and Tatsu has all the connections to all the gun runners and all the weapons specialists. So they're looking through the Yakuza to see if any weird weapons are showing up on the scene. So yeah, so they're doing all this kind of cool reconnaissance stuff. Like, we're even going to have a fun episode where at one point Akira's getting picked on for joining Arctic, and these guys are giving him a hard time, and like Ken's kind of hanging out in the background looking at him, watching him get picked on. It's like, dude, you know, it's like, you need to step it up, man. Like, you know, start standing up to these dudes. Like, come with me, I want to show you something. And he takes them to like an underground Yakuza den with all these guys like shooting weapons on a gun range. And it's all these guys hanging out on like crates of machine guns, you know. And he's like this little kid like hanging out with all these guys. So there'll be some kind of fun situational comedy episodes that we can do with it that aren't even necessarily about the robots. It's just this like fun day in the life kind of stuff.
I like those kind of episodes.
Yeah, they're kind
myself.
of fun, right? Yeah, and I mean that was sort of my running joke too, is I wanted to definitely have some episodes where, you know, you do the intro and it's this big action, bam, bam, robots, robots, and then the episode's like, her and her friends go to the arcade. You know? So yeah, lots of fun stuff like that. So yeah, well, thank you guys for coming to my animation panel. I'm not clapping for myself. I was clapping for listening to me yap for over 2 hours.
It was worth it.
It was awesome.
Well, good. Yeah. So does this kind of give you a good idea of like where to start if you want to start putting something together? So just remember, it's all bullet points. Like just make bullet points. That's all you need. And I, you know, for the miscellaneous adventures of Pooh Boy, when we worked on that, like all of that, we didn't even write scripts. It was just bullet points. So it's like, Pooh Boy walks on. He is scared by something. Pooh Boy poos, you know? And so we just like, I was doing all the voices for Pooh Boy, so they just bring me in and
Damn, we're awake.
It's because I turned my laptop off, sorry.
Oh, it's all good.
But yeah, so you know, but they bring me in and I just go like, and then And then I take that soundtrack and bring it in and drop Pooh Boy in and do the animation. Well, cool. Awesome, guys. If anyone wants to come check this stuff out, I'm going to leave it out for a minute.
Oh, okay.